everyone. I'm Kathy Powers, Superintendent with the Twinsburg City School District. Welcome to Twinsburg Schools Today. Well, we're into the second quarter of the school year. Fall sports is just about over and winter sports is just about to begin, and so we are delighted that the school year is going along so very well. And this afternoon, I wanted to introduce to you one of the newest members of our central office team, our new Director of Human Resources, Mr. Michael Sedlak. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Well, you're very welcome. You know, behind the scenes, so many things happen to make sure that the learning experience for the students is as best as it can be. And we're going to talk a little bit about your role as Human Resources Director and how you find the best talent to put in front of our kids. But before we get to all that, let's introduce you to the community, a little bit about your experience, a little bit maybe about your family,
Sure.
Because everyone's always interested to know a little bit about who we are as people before they worry about who we are as professionals that support our students. So let's take a walk back.
Memory
like
lane.
it's your interview, right?
Memory lane. So excellent. Thank you for having me, and it's great to be in Twinsburg City School District. I've really enjoyed my first few months here. It's been excellent experience. Everyone's been very friendly and just happy to be here. So background, I started off as a middle school teacher, was in Bedford for a year, and then my wife and I moved out to Las Vegas and taught 6th and 7th grade English at a middle school, Levitt Middle School in Las Vegas.
How was that? Las Vegas.
It was amazing.
Were you close to like the casinos?
We were maybe 30 minutes from the casinos, depending. I mean, there's local casinos, but the Strip, the big ones, 25, 30 minutes away, depending on traffic. And what was interesting, it was such a large district. At the time, there were about 311,000 kids. And what do we have here?
We have shy of 4,000.
4,000 kids here.
311,000?
We had 311,000 kids. At the time, we were the 5th largest in the nation. So it was totally different than growing up and living in Ohio. And it was different lifestyle and, people coming in with different jobs and obviously a lot of industry, working in hotels and IT and things like that. So it was definitely interesting and very fun. A lot of different experiences that we may have not been able to get if in Ohio because it was so large. As I started leaning more towards administration, there were more opportunities for me to lead professional development through the curriculum department because it was so large. Mentoring and coaching new teachers or pre-service teachers through UNLV. That was something that wouldn't have the opportunity necessarily to do staying in Ohio in the smaller communities. So that was definitely interesting, learning experience. Got to see a lot of shows and experience and travel the West Coast of the United States, which was awesome because we kind of had our hub there. So it was definitely an exciting time. And then we had our first daughter, Kathi, and decided we wanted to be back home with family. So Kathi was born in February. We moved home over the summer. Where I was the assistant principal at Chardon High School for 3 years. Obviously, during that time, that was interesting and difficult. It was during the shooting in 2012. So although that's, part of my history, I don't like it to define my career, but it definitely has changed my outlook on how I see certain situations and aspects of school life.
Surely changed you as a person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, wow.
So during that time, ended up having my second daughter, Lindsay, and then had the opportunity to move to Hudson City Schools. And my son was born around that time, and that's it. We're done, 3 and done. So we have Kathi, Lindsay, and Andrew, and I was at Hudson Schools for 11 years. Again, had a lot of opportunities there. I was assistant principal at the middle school for 2 years, and then there was an opening as principal at one of the elementary buildings. So I took that position. I was the proud principal of a 4th and 5th grade building for 6 years, and during that time, we had a master facility plan, and we built a new middle school and merged schools, and had a lot of movement along those lines. which then I had the opportunity to go back to the high school level. So I really, enjoyed that. And then after 3 years as unit principal at Hudson High School, I was actually talked to Mr. Bell's class this morning about this. They asked what made me switch. And, human resources, I think, is such an important part of a school district in that, we're trying to help the current staff we have and build them and grow them as leaders and educators. And, we're trying to bring in educators and, people that are really going to make a difference with our students. And I do feel everyone that works in a school is an educator. And the fact that whether it's, somebody say, well, I'm food service, or, I'm a lunchroom playground aide, or I'm an instructional, you're all educators. We're all here to educate our students, to love them, and to, make them enjoy Twinsburg City School District and have a positive educational career. So I really take that seriously and personally and want to bring in the best candidates we can so that our kids have the best experience they can. I feel like all educators are educators because they had good experiences in school, and I want to emulate that for our children.
Having the career path that you have had, some locally and then out in Las Vegas and then coming back, and rich experiences, do you value is the wrong question, but there's such richness in having been in other communities. Do you want to address that a little bit? Like, why is that a good thing that you've had those kinds of experiences?
So to even go before that, I did do my student teaching in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Goodness gracious.
So
an international person.
So I do value the cultures that each school and each community brings. I went to school at Bowling Green. Yes, I could have student taught in Bowling Green or around there, but there was an opportunity to student teach in Brazil, and I thought it'd be a great learning experience. So I did that, and so I kind of bring all those different experiences. You learn from every place you go to, and yes, there are people that go to the school district and graduate from there and come back to teach, and we love that. We love the history and the generational, tie that brings everyone together. But I also think it's important to have other opinions from outside and see different things. I can bring ideas from an extremely large district and ideas from smaller districts and ideas from comparable districts like Hudson. And that can shape how I run a HR department or work with teachers or students or even parents and community. We didn't have levies and bond issues and things like that in Las Vegas. That wasn't a thing. They built schools and kids went and that was it, because they were county schools versus city schools and things like that. So there's all sorts of differences in the maybe administration structure. So it's very interesting.
I think it's fascinating. Every place you go, you assimilate into that culture, and then that culture becomes part of who you are.
Absolutely.
And then it helps to inform you as a professional person in making some decisions and in what you aspire for our school district to be. And we're so proud about the fact that we have so many diverse backgrounds in our staff and in our students, and it just makes the place much richer, I think, for having that. So if you talk about this role that you've now gotten used to for being here a couple months, summer was fast, and summer is your busy time in the HR department, and
yes.
It's hard when you don't even know the players.
Right.
And then you're trying to hire folks, trying to fit like square pegs in the round holes because you're not really sure of all the fit and all that. So you're leaning on your administrative colleagues, and did a great job this summer. Moving into the future, like when you think about hiring for our school district, you mentioned about the fact that everybody, no matter what position you have with us, is an educator, whether
Yes.
you're a bus driver or a cook or head custodian. You're all part and parcel of educating students and getting them ready for their next whatever. But when you're meeting people for the first time in the interview process, what are a couple things that you personally look for to know that they're a good fit for entering into our school family?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to bring up Mr. Bell's class today. Shout out to him. I was a guest speaker last week and today in his class, and we were talking about written and oral communication and knowing your audience. And I talked to them. I said, you know, what I look for is how the candidates are talking about students, how they're talking about kids and what they're going to do for kids, and how it's going to make our school district better for kids. I find it very difficult to want to hire someone if they're not talking about how them being a part of Twinsburg City School District, how they're going to make things better for our students. So if you're a candidate out there, make sure you're talking about kids during your interview, because that's why we're all here for kids. If we didn't love kids and want to see kids succeed, none of us would be here.
Right.
So that's my big. You have to be about kids in order to work here.
You know, and in your role as the district's main person responsible for the personnel, you're never really done.
Correct.
Right. You're busy in the summer, but you're never really done. So if I'm sitting at home watching the show this afternoon or this morning, and I'm looking for a position, what's the process to connect with you?
So we have a website, the Twinsburg City School District website, and under the community section there is a HR tab that you can go to, and through Frontline you can apply. We have some sub positions that are always open. We're always looking for subs, whether it's, you know, in our main offices or for administrative assistants or cooks, or looking for something a little more part-time and want to do, you know, lunch aides. So those are always open, and people can apply, and those are routed directly to me. Certainly if you see something open for a specific position that we're hiring, a permanent position, you apply through that. It's always helpful to reach out to, you know, someone at the building, or if you know someone in the community, just to say, hey, you know, I'm applying. That's helpful to keep an eye out. But we're looking for people that care about kids and love kids and want to make it a great place.
And sometimes one of the best ways is to substitute, see if this role is something that you are interested in doing, that you feel you do well, and then maybe something else will come of it as another fuller time position.
Absolutely. We find, even in other districts, we find a lot of our permanent employees by subbing, or they started in this and then they said, hey, I saw you have an opening in the office, can I do that? And then from there they're hired. So.
And we're always looking for bus drivers.
Yes.
So anybody who is interested in driving one of our buses, we're interested in talking to you too.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. Mr. Strickland, and he would love that.
For sure, for sure. Well, it was a great opportunity for me to introduce you to our community this afternoon, and wish you all the best as part of our Tiger family. And I often say this, the reason why you were interesting to us when we interviewed you is because you are a people kind of guy, and you're always interested in having that conversation and building relationships, which is really part and parcel of the HR department.
Well, thank you. Appreciate being here, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Well, when we come back for the second part of our show today, I'm going to be interviewing Mr. Ryan Bandiera, who is our Director of Pupil Services, and Miss Juliann Walker, who is our MTSS Coordinator. And if you're wondering what that is, come on back after the break. Welcome back to Twinsburg Schools Today. I'm Kathi Powers, the superintendent with the district, and I am excited to introduce to you two of our wonderful staff members. First, Mr. Ryan Bandiera, our Director of Pupil Services.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Miss Juliann Walker, our MTSS coordinator.
Thank you.
That's a mouthful.
That is.
Yes.
That is.
Well, you know, in this school district, we have wonderful students and amazing educators and support staff, but behind the scenes, there are also administrators that support what happens. And Mr. Bandiera, in your role as Pupil Services Director, if you can just explain, I know your umbrella is not even a rain umbrella, it's a beach umbrella, I say, but you support so many different areas of the school district. Can you just give a little summary of what all those areas happen to be?
Sure. So I am lucky to work in a great department. I have a Pupil Services Department, and our Pupil Services Department oversees our district special ed initiatives. We oversee our Section 504 plans, our students that might be experiencing homelessness or in foster care situations, our district's positive behavior intervention supports, and our school health care services. So lots of different things under that umbrella. But one of the things we're excited about is our multi-tiered systems of support. And that's just really finding ways that we support students behaviorally, emotionally, socially, and academically.
So one of the things that we find ourselves slipping into is that we always call it by the acronym or by the alphabet. And so we often say MTSS, whatever, MTSS program or coordinator. Can you explain for our audience what does MTSS or multi-tiered systems of support actually mean?
Yeah, so we do like our alphabet soup in our world of education, so we always are using those different acronyms. But the nice thing is MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support, is kind of, like you said earlier, that umbrella idea that anything that a student needs to support them in being a great student, being a Twinsburg Tiger student. So being, sometimes students might need a little extra help in their classroom. And we call that sometimes different tiers of intervention. So there's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Our tier 1 interventions really start in the classroom with students who need extra behavior help or maybe extra academic help, some extra things from their teacher, maybe a little bit of extra time with their teacher, or an extra reading lesson that they need. And then it builds up into those different tiers and leads us ultimately to where Mrs. Walker is joining us and helping us with supporting our students at those higher levels of support, and helping our teachers find out what our students need to really support their educational and emotional needs.
So in the run-of-the-mill general education classroom, we have, say, 20 students. And coming through the door, they present themselves in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Strengths and challenges, areas of weakness, and areas that need to be stretched. And so for a typical classroom, a tier 1 intervention would be something that we would say any student in that class with a specialized concern would receive, right?
Absolutely. It could be anything in that classroom. It could be maybe this student needs to be in a different reading group within that classroom. Maybe this student needs a behavior chart to help them focus a little more in the classroom. So whatever that student needs, we're going to provide right in that classroom to help that student.
Okay, so that's just for anyone who's in the room. So when you talk about tier 2 then, so what would a tier 2 intervention look like? And can you give some examples?
Sure. Sometimes a lot of our parents are right now hearing about our DIBELS or our M-Class assessment. That's a great way to start. So that is our reading assessment that we administer to all of our elementary age students. And with that, if a student maybe came up just below their peers, but just below average, we use that tool to help us say that maybe that student needs a little more help. So instead of just getting the regular lesson from the teacher, maybe they're now going to get the regular lesson, but also at maybe a win time or what I need time. They're going to be pulled out and get to work with another teacher or work with their teacher to help advance their skills, enrich their skills, or support their needs. They can do reading in a couple different ways. They can look at it from breaking down the phonics of the reading, the phonemes, break it down to the simple word parts, or maybe the student needs some comprehension help. They're not understanding what they're reading, and they're working in a smaller group to break down the text and understand things a little more fluently. So
for tier 2, would those interventions be provided in the classroom, or are students going for small group instruction someplace else?
I'm going to say both. Sometimes it's done right in the classroom and helping the student right there, and other times it's done by someone maybe outside the classroom, someone maybe pulling the student. A lot of times you'll hear the words Title I or Title instruction or academic support people. And we have a lot of great staff who will pull those students sometimes for that extra intervention at times too. So it's really where the student needs it, and I love when we call it the win period or what I need, because it's where they need it and when they need it.
Okay, so that's the second layer. So how about this tier 3?
So tier 3, sometimes we're just increasing the intensity of what we're doing. So we're jumping to that level of, maybe a student needs a little bit more intensive intervention. We've tried something for a couple weeks, and we're seeing that maybe it's working and it needs a little more, or maybe it's not working, we're going to try something different. For that, tier 3 can be something we're trying in the classroom. It can be something we're pulling out of the classroom to try as well, to make sure we're supporting those students at what they need. Sometimes that's when you might get involved on maybe one of our intervention specialists, or you might get involved one of our reading instructors, our reading coaches, or all those great people who are helping the students. They're doing that more direct, more intensive intervention with that student, collecting that data. That's the big piece. We have to make sure we're always collecting that data. And then from there, tracking that intervention, seeing if it's working, or if we need to do another step and another way to help that student as well.
So if I'm a parent watching the show and my, let's say, 4th grader is having some trouble with reading, and they may have had some extra support from their classroom teacher.
Yeah.
They might be pulled out for Title I reading. But still, my child continues to struggle in school. So what would be the next thing we would be doing?
Sure. So right now, it's a perfect timing because a lot of our schools are going through parent-teacher conferences right now. So I always say, start with the classroom teacher. We have such great classroom teachers across the board. And I would always say, start with your classroom teacher and raise your concern to them. Ask that question of, how is my child doing? Sometimes as a parent, I don't always know how my child's doing compared to the other 20-some students in the classroom. So, schedule that time, talk with your child's teacher. From there, I always say it's always good to reach out to sometimes our school counselors or administrators as well, because they're another layer in that. There are experts as well at the at the higher level, the more building level, and schedule a time to talk. Schedule a meeting, and then ultimately, if it comes to it, Ms. Walker could help and join that too. She's been part of a lot of our meetings this year with our families too, where they develop a specific intervention plan for that student. They're tracking data on it, and then they're able to come back to the table in a couple weeks and see how the student's doing with that intervention plan. And
so with that data, other decisions can be made about supporting the child.
Yes. Yeah, so with that, if the data supports it and the student still needs something extra, then the other part of my office comes involved because we have our school psychologists, and our school psychologists will often look in to see if evaluation team report, another acronym here, or an ETR, an evaluation is needed for that student to see if they might qualify for special education services. And then another acronym, an IEP, or an individualized education program.
So it all kind of works hand in hand.
Yes.
So I know over the course of the years that we have been here, Ryan, that we have great programs in each of our 5 schools. But one of the issues that we identified is the fact that although we're all doing great work with providing interventions for students, there wasn't alignment between the schools. So a student who would experience a certain kind of intervention, say at Wilcox, but when they would get to Bissell, it would be changing, or maybe the approach is changing.
Yeah.
And then the same would be for Dodge and up the chain. And so we recognize that it would be important for the services to be aligned. And so fast forward, we welcome back to our school district this year, Juliann Walker. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We're delighted that you're here. And just for the residents who are watching our show, you were previously assistant principal at Dodge.
Yes.
And then you wanted to tell your story. What happened then?
And then after Dodge, I did 2 years in Kenston local schools, and I was a building principal there. And then this opportunity opened up, and I just knew I had to come back to Twinsburg.
That's awesome. So right now is this new role of MTSS coordinator. Can you give our audience a little bit of understanding? As far as what are you doing? The alignment of these programs, as Ryan just explained, we have so many things happening, and we have these 3 tiers and hardworking staff members supporting students. But the coordination of the effort is really important. So can you explain a little bit about your role and the work that you're doing right now?
And that's exactly it. With the amazing staff and the programs that we have and the resources that we have, there isn't a staff or a building that's not working hard. It's just, like you said, kind of combining that and putting that in a nice system and in a good framework. So it is cohesive. So when our students join us here as preschool students and they go all the way up through the high school. They have the same systems of support. It may look a little different in each building, but that's where my role comes in. So I am actually working with district personnel to put together a guidebook that we will be able to streamline the interventions and the tiers of support and what that looks like and the intensity, and also to use the same terminology and vocabulary, which we found to be something that's a need here.
Even calling a meeting by the same name is important for families, right?
Exactly.
Because although the staff might not travel from one building to the next, our parents are doing that because of how our buildings are set up. So if I'm a Wilcox parent and I'm having a watch meeting, and then I go to Bissell and I don't even know what they call their meetings, data meetings or something. So they're calling
maybe RTI.
RTI meeting. And so for the parent who's just trying to be a good partner and we're changing the names of meetings, it's just confusing. Right, so there's such value to what the work is that you're doing.
And it also gives me a chance to meet with families and to get involved with students and to work directly with teachers to help them provide supports that our kids need.
That's great. I know one of the areas that we talk about is in some of our state reporting shows that in some pockets of kids where we may be over-identifying students for special education services. And that's a real problem because we'd love to provide interventions, but the identification of a student with disabilities is something we take very seriously.
Yes.
And we have to make sure that when a child is identified with a disability, that there's all the data to back up that we've tried all these other programs or processes or strategies, and yet it's still something additional to that needs to happen. So how does MTSS fit in with the identification of students and their possible participation in our special education programs?
Sure. So jumping right on that, like you said, that's one of the big things we are, have to keep an eye on. We always have to keep an eye on that. And the idea is if we're providing these interventions at these different tiers and collecting the right data, at some point maybe we don't need to go down a special education evaluation route because the student is, with the extra help in the interventions, succeeding at the same level as their peers. And that's the ultimate goal, finding what that intervention technique is before making that serious conversation and saying if a student has a disability. So I think they work hand in hand, absolutely.
Such a
100%.
coordinated effort.
Yes.
And for the sake of our classroom teachers, Juliann, so once you create this guidebook and we align at least the vocabulary here in the front end and then processes thereafter, how is this going to help the educators that work in our community?
Well, I think, again, it will streamline the whole process. And one thing great about MTSS and going through this is that it's a proactive approach. So it's looking for potential challenges before they become obstacles. So teachers will have some support with maybe universal screeners that we can look at ahead of time and see some potential problems and kind of attack that right away before they impede any of the students' success.
What have you been hearing from staff or parents about your role here in the district and the support you're providing?
They've been amazingly welcoming and just opening it up to the building to allow me to come in and to collaborate with them and to do some modeling and allow them to collaborate with each other. It's been great.
And it's good that you have the objective oversight of all the data too. Everyone owns their data, but when a third party comes in and maybe you can see something that they can't see by just looking at what the trends happen to be.
Yes, and just offering support sometimes, just that extra ear is great too.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so grateful that you're back.
Grateful to be
and
here.
Mr. Bandiera, I appreciate all that you do under your huge beach umbrella. It's just a wonderful partnership between the two of you and of course with the rest of our staff as well. And I appreciate all of your efforts.
And we're
Thank
excited.
you.
We're excited to have her too, and we're
Yes.
she brings such wealth of experience too.
That's wonderful.
Thrilled to be
Thanks
here.
for being here today.
Thank you.
Well, as we move forward into the calendar, we know that the holidays will soon be here. And of course, our Thanksgiving break is a week in November this year. On behalf of the entire school district, we wish you and yours the very best Thanksgiving break. We are thankful for your continued support of our Twinsburg City School District and our Tigers. And I hope to see you soon at one of our many events here in the Twinsburg City School District. Have a great day, everybody.